Hi, this is Brian Kim. I'm going to share with you case number 245 in the best way to do cataract surgery series. And the title of this series is not to suggest this is the best way, but to get you to think critically of your technique, finding ways to refine and hone your technique so that you can provide the very best for your patient. So as I progress to do this case, during the rexis tries to run out. And you're going to see how I redirect the rexis. But more importantly, you're going to see another reason why I always keep the OVD cannula in my Sideport incision. I've been doing that more recently where I keep the OVD cannula in the Sideport incision. It helps me to control the eye in a patient who tries to move the eye around. In particular, when they have a strong Bell's reflex, it's really quite helpful for the rod eyes. I can use a cannula to immobilize the eye with a strong Bell's reflex, and then I can twist the incision with the cannula using the Orlock technique and control the eye for the left eyes as well. And this case illustrates another reason why I have the OVD cannula in. When the rexis starts to run out, I can push more OVD to flatten that anterior capsule and then very easily redirect that rexis run out. So I place a corneal marker which will help me to center and size the rexis. You can see this patient has a rather strong Bell's reflex. This is the left eye. I make my paracentesis incision first on the right side and then the left side. I'm injecting some intracameral epinephrine and then some dispersive viscoelastic to coat the corneal endothelium and flatten the anterior capsule. You see I'm having to perform the Orlock technique, which is essentially twisting the cannula within the incision, and then I'm able to turn the eye down, which is again towards the left side of the screen. And this is the triplanar corneal incision. I make a vertical groove, place the blade into the deep part of the groove, tunnel, and then I enter. These are the sharp tip microrhexis forceps. I puncture the center, go all the way around, grabbing the right side of the tear. And you can see I'm going around circumferentially. Everything is going great. But now here, the rexis tries to run out. And so why is that happening? This patient does have a little bit of convexity to the anterior capsule surface. The lens is kind of bulging forward. There might be some zonular laxity as well. There might be some OVD egress, but there's not too much. But nonetheless, I'm able to push more OVD because I'm using the cannula anyway. It's already there. And then I grab the edge of the tear and I pull down towards me. By pulling the rexis towards me, it immediately redirects the tear. Again, it's not quite like the little maneuver. You don't have to necessarily pull back in this case because it didn't run out too far. I just pulled centrally and then the rexis immediately rerighted itself. I was able to redirect the rexis and then finish it in typical fashion. Place some more OVD on the cornea to get a nice clear view. And this helps keep my technician from having to drip on the cornea the entire time. And this is the capsular fornix hydrodissection technique. I place a cannula under the rexis edge contra-incisionally, get a nice wave, decompress. Using the cannula tip to hook the lens, and then I'm able to gently turn the lens as you see here. Lifting the incision with a chopper, going in with irrigation off to minimize Descemet's trauma, removing the surface epinuclear material. And right here, you can see I'm pronating my hand. I'm sliding the chopper under the rexis edge, contra-incisionally, making sure I get under the rexis edge, pushing down on the lens material, sliding out to the periphery. And then I'm hooking the lens from the periphery, contra-incisionally. I turn the phaco tip vertically, sub-incisionally. Now I'm able to push the phaco tip down. I'm flanking the lens on either side. I'm able to bring the instruments together, crush the lens with mechanical fracturing forces, and that's the double chop. Pronating my hand, sliding it under the rexis edge, under the right heminucleus, hooking the peripheral lens, pulling it centrally toward the phaco tip, fracturing the lens completely in half, and that is a cross chop maneuver. Using some vacuum to grab the first quadrant up. Once I lift it up, I'm able to crush the lens between the instruments and then emulsifying the lens pieces. Turning the 2nd heminucleus in front of me, Sliding the chopper under the rexis edge contra-incisionally, the phaco tip is deep within the bag, and I'm able to flank the lens and crush it with mechanical fracturing forces. And then just emulsifying that third quadrant, lifting that last quadrant up with some vacuum, getting the chopper around it, crushing the lens between the instruments with successive crushing maneuvers, crushing it between the instruments over and over again, and then emulsifying the lens pieces. Again, by using a little bit of vacuum, I'm able to hold the lens in place, getting the chopper around it and crushing the lens between the instruments, and then emulsifying the lens piece. I'm getting a little bit of conjunctival ballooning over my sideport incision, so I use the chopper to kind of pull down on the conj, creating a little bit of a pocket to allow the fluid to get out so it doesn't continue to cause more conjunctival ballooning. Very carefully, oh, there's that second quadrant. I never did emulsify that second quadrant, so now I was able to eat it and then eat the epinucleus. So I take the chopper out, push BSS in, take the phaco tip out, and then I go in with the INA handpiece. I start sub-incisionally, peeling the cortex from anterior to posterior. You can see the cortex pretty much came out, most of it came out with the epinuclear shell. Now I have to deal with some of this fine cortical wisps. So I switched to polish mode, polishing and removing the fine cortical wisps, contra-incisionally as well as sub-incisionally on the posterior capsule, sweeping under the rexis edge, going around. With the polish mode and the polymer tip, this is a very safe maneuver, even though it's a blind pass, but this ensures there's no remaining lens material within the capsule fornix. I place the BSS cannula under the rexis edge sub-incisionally, pulsing BSS, which loosens some of that cortical material. I'm able to remove it. Turn off the infusion and then pushing cohesive viscoelastic to fill the bag. And you always want to turn off the infusion because if you don't, then the viscoelastic will just come straight out. So you disengage it and then push the cohesive viscoelastic to fill the bag. Sweeping with the sweeper under the rexis edge, removing lens epithelial cells on the left side first and then the right side. Placing the single piece acrylic lens within the capsular bag. You see, I'm always utilizing that second instrument, that sideport incision, throughout the entire case. And I think that's really important for everyone to think about. Remember, you have two hands. Why do a one-handed maneuver when two hands can make it easier for you, right? And so that's always the way you want to think critically of your technique. Think about better ways and easier ways to do surgery. You see here I'm lifting the lens and going underneath the lens, removing all the viscoelastic from within the bag. Polishing under the rexis edge, and then I'll remove the viscoelastic from the anterior chamber, and then I'll hydrate my incision. So going back to my point, you have two hands, go ahead and use both hands, and that's throughout the entire case. And that is, using the Orlock technique to control the eye if you have a strong Bell's reflex, using the chopper to mechanically fracture the lens, flanking the lens with the chopper and the phaco tip so that you can efficiently disassemble the lens with the double chop and cross chop maneuver and mechanical fracturing forces. Again, with the rexis, you saw I keep the cannula in the sideport incision. This helps me control the eye if the eye tries to move funny. If the patient has a strong Bell's reflex, I can control it. I can use the Orlock technique to control it. But then in this case, it's a beautiful example. When the rexis tried to run out, I was able to push viscoelastic, which helps to flatten the anterior capsule surface, which again allows me to control the rexis. And then I grab the rexis, pull it centrally, and it immediately redirected. And I had excellent control of the rexis. So again, using that sideport incision, using the viscoelastic cannula is very, very helpful and helps in these situations, even though I never intended to use it in that way. Because I had the cannula in my hand the entire time, I was able to utilize it very quickly and efficiently without having to switch instruments and putting another instrument in the eye. You saw here at the very end of the case, I used a Maltzman to reposition the lens. I turned it slightly anti-clockwise in order to get that rexis runout area to be right in line with the optic haptic junction to make sure there's 360 degrees of overlap. So again, every case is a learning case. And so you saw in this case how using the OVD cannula can not only help control the eye, but allows me to fill the eye with viscoelastic in the case of a rexis runout. So I hope this was helpful to you, and I thank you for your attention.